a deputy, and we said, well, half of that deputy should be paid for by the little towns. They're required by law to have law enforcement.
Well, you ready?
I think I am.
I guess we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I always just assumed that was something that everyone did.
Yeah.
There's only one stand. Guys should probably change your names.
Over here.
Yeah, I actually had to agree. Maybe I better sit there for this meeting.
Mike's
During the
gone.
budget stuff, Mike's been gone, so
Oh, really?
there's more room over on this corner of the table.
He misses me.
Yeah.
All right, consider for approval minutes and agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and agenda.
I'll second the motion. A motion from Jensrol and a second from Derby to approve the minutes and agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And I am discussion with possible action regarding county paramedics and funding.
Thanks for allowing me to come. You know, whenever I show up, it's always good news. So I guess my purpose of being here today is to get a hold of what the county's vision is for emergency services in Winnebago County. There are some changes coming down through the state line that are going to impact a lot of the smaller services. It's going to impact even our service to the point where we may have to call our paramedic something other than 4-city paramedics to get by on a legal standpoint. For instance, Garner has an ambulance service and they staff it to advanced levels so they can start IVs. And then they have paramedics in town that if they're available and they need a call or need a medic on the call, they just call them out and they'll go. According to the state, that's no longer going to be acceptable. So all the state's verbiage is impacting the counties worse than anything. I think Winnebago County needs to look down the road, you know, a year or two down the road, and start planning now for that, whether it's a emergency 911 tax or something on that order. Because it's not a simple deal. It's not like Hancock County did, because they were able to tie it on to their taxation for the hospital and just pull out funds that way. Winnebago County, you'd have to go to a vote, levy, things like that. Right now, our staff, we're down to 2 full-times for the paramedics. We're normally 4 full-times, we're down to 2. We just lost another one, and she'll be done end of January. We've got 6 part-timers that I was able to get hired. Of course, that adds extra funds coming out. And at budget time, we may have to revisit and see if there's more funds available to be able to cover that. We're doing our best to provide additional paramedic to the county as much as we can, but it's not going to be feasible 24/7 like it was before. It just isn't. I can't find enough medics. In fact, one of the part-timers I just hired is coming from Benton, so she's driving 120 miles to cover 24-hour shift. It's just tough out in the rural areas, and I guess that's my proposal here, is that you guys start looking at a forward vision to see where we're at, to see where you want your county to go. Because we need the local volunteers. I mean, that accident we had on January 1st, I mean, that just showed what our volunteers could do for the community. And if we were forced to go to a county ambulance service, it takes 1,000 calls to justify an ambulance. So you add all the calls in Winnebago County and you don't have 1,000 paid calls altogether. So we're looking at big tax dollars if it ever comes down to a county ambulance service. What I could see working first is a county paramedic service, where the county hires or pays for the staffing of 1 full-time medic stationed someplace in Winnebago County. that would assist Lake Mills, Buffalo Center, you know, and Forest City, and then Forest City would also use their paramedic to do the same. That's what I can see happening as far as a vision with Winnebago County to be the cheapest all the way around. But it's still going to cost a lot of dollars. But I was going to have more information for you, and then I had to go in and transfer to Rochester yesterday, so I didn't get back to about 8 last night. But
So you touched on a levy, special levy that would have to be passed by vote, or?
I sent Andy Buffington an email trying to figure out, because I talked to the county supervisors in Hancock County, and they referred me to Andy. So I sent Andy an email on that, and he must be busy, he hasn't responded back. But from what Brian Roberts had told me, that it would have to be levied, gone to a vote, you know, kind of like a special bond election, something on that order. And forgive me, I'm not well versed in how that all goes, but it would have to be a vote.
Farm Bureau put us on to a section of code that through income taxes, we have the ability to collect monies for EMS through income tax.
Okay.
Not sure how that works, if it's the, you know, resolution or if it has to take a vote or what it is. We haven't looked into that yet, but that's another avenue to take the burden off the property owners and put it on the people that are working.
Right. And, you know, that sounds like a fair proposal, and I'm open to anything at this, and, you know, just basically an eye-opener to see where we're going down the road, because nothing's going to happen quick. And to staff a county paramedic, if we just staffed one county paramedic, you're probably looking at about $350,000 minimum.
Yeah.
But,
Now, does that include the equipment involved?
no,
Yeah.
you're just talking payroll at that point. Because, you know, you get in a whole nother set of logistics. Where do you place that one out in the county? Do you put them on the North Junction? You know, do you build a housing out there? Some place to stage them. Realistically, the best place per call volume is Lake Mills. And then you could cover Buffalo Center either from Forest City or Lake Mills with that. It depends on which way they're going. But
And then trying to draw somebody here to actually staff it.
it will help more if we don't have the backup shift. Everyone is leaving because no one else is offering backup shifts. They don't have to stick around in town for the pager time. They're all going full pay. And it's a dog-eat-dog, cutthroat world out there for medics right now. The last one I lost went to Clear Lake because Clear Lake was short, so they snagged one of ours. In turn, I was able to get a part-timer out of Care Ambulance Service and snag them up to here. So, in looking at the people that are in schooling right now, DMAC has only got a class of 12 going through this year. I talked to one guy from Trinity that's going to start in June. His class is 95% placed already, and no one's willing to come up this area because of backup. So it would have to be full-time staffed with no backup, 24, you know, 24 shifts a week and no backup. But I think Carla would be able to do that in her off time, is to figure all that stuff out. Anything else? I mean, I hate to be bearer of bad news, but I'm seeing it more and more every day. I mean, we used to be able to do our schedules year in advance, have our schedule posted for all the medics. It took me 3 days to get 1 month filled and completed for this last month. So
All the stuff coming down from the state, and that, is it making it easier or worse?
worse,
So why are they doing it?
to make their job easier. You know, it's Iowa Department of Public Health, what I see, and we got into kind of an email battle back and forth because I told them they were putting a noose around the rural communities and just strangling them out of existence. And their comeback is, no, we're trying to help them. Well, their idea of trying to help them is, let's say Buffalo Center doesn't have 100 calls a year. So they would have to become an affiliate of someplace else. Let's say Forest City or Lake Mills. They would have to be an affiliate. That affiliate would take care of all their paperwork, all their state stuff, all their training, all their ambulance operations. And like I come back to them and I said, so everyone is maxed out workload beyond belief, how is someone gonna pick up those extra duties when they're already doing it themselves? They have no answer for it. I think Iowa Department of Public Health is short-staffed, is hurting, so this is a way that streamlines their job, makes it easier.
Why not just make it easier all around, just let us take care of ourselves?
I'd love to do that, and that's, you know, that was my thinking as far as becoming an essential service. You know, you involve the state is gonna push it back. I'd rather see the counties be forthcoming and get something set up themselves and leave the state completely out of it and let them just oversee it, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Is there anything else?
It's a question if we're gonna have some forums over what we're gonna do with public health and all that, and this would be one of the things to bring up there, is what people wanna
Our
do.
priorities.
Do they wanna have emergency services, or are they willing to wait an extra half hour while they're having their heart attack?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and it's a trickle-down effect, you know. People say, well, we can always get Mason City Fire or Clear Lake, you know, to come and help assist. They're hurting just as bad, you know. They can't get enough staffing to fill everybody up, and Clear Lake only staffs one rig, so they can't come out to these rural areas as much as what, you know, everyone's hoping. So it's, I myself think they're, you know, like you said, public forums, get a start on it. I don't know if it's through Department of Public Health, figure out where we're going with this, but, you know, I just wanted to bring it back up to the forefront. And
I imagine, like public health and mental health, your paperwork has increased over the years. What you have to.
oh yeah,
for
Yep.
reimbursements.
depends on what type of call it is. Sometimes the paperwork takes longer than the call.
Right.
But
Yeah, we're taking high-priced individuals' time and wasting it doing all kinds of paperwork. They got one in public health, it took like 8 months to get the thing settled. If it was done at the county level, it took 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Just read through it and decide what you're gonna do. But because they kept getting hangnails in their paperwork with the MCOs and stuff like that, kept getting kicked. I'll bet she has more money in her time invested, what we pay her per hour, more money and time than what the reimbursement was for the.
doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that may not be true, but I can see how it could be.
But
Because she has hours and hours invested in this one claim.
you know, if you guys are going to hold public forums, I'd love to be able to help you out. If you need any help, do some research for you. You know, but like I said, the main thing is just that we keep it on our visionary plan, because the last thing we'd want to do is get caught, you know, and play the catch-up game. So
Okay,
that's where we're at. Thank you.
thank you, Dale.
All right, yeah, when if we have those public hearings, it might be good for you to come and
I will definitely attend.
all right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. He's not here?
Not here.
Oh, so that means we gotta train. How is the quick way to do this?
Look on the sheet, find the person that you're looking for.
And then punch in the number?
Yeah.
I used to tell state legislators, I said, my biggest fear is when you tell me you're coming to help.
That's what Ronald Reagan said too.
He was right.
Hello.
Scott, we're ready for you.
Okay.
Actually, we got Jim up right now.
Okay. So now or a little bit or?
Right after Jim, so it'll be a little bit, so.
I won't
Okay,
be long.
sounds good.
You're at
Oh,
9:15.
yeah, you're 9:15.
I won't be long,
You're number 6 on the list and he's number 3, but
but I'm here.
you're here.
Jim Ullman, Winnebago Historical Society, discuss requests.
Heritage Park of North Iowa is, we're a nonprofit, and we honestly are a nonprofit. We don't make enough money. We depend upon some help from our friends. Last year, you guys had some financial troubles, so we didn't get anything, but we could really truly use the $3,000 if you can find it. But we get a lot of people going through there. Tour of Lights this year, I see had over 4,000 people go through, which was a good deal for us and for the public. Our big show of the year is going to be June this year instead of September. Instead of being the last on the list, we thought maybe we'll try being first on the list. Try to get attendance up higher. But we tour a lot of people, we give a lot of tours to schools and nursing homes and everything else in between. A lot of people come to this area, not just Forest City, the whole area, when we have our events. So it's a busy place. And I think we bring a lot of people into town, which they buy gasoline around the hotels. We fill up from the casino to Clear Lake, a lot of the motels and stuff. And we even get this young lady here to help us out once in a while. And then she drags someone else along with her. Any questions for me?
None offhand. The budget's not much better this year than it was last year.
Yeah, neither is mine, guys. We do hit up all the counties, Worth County and Hancock County, the city, of course, and they all help. So anything you can do for us, we certainly appreciate it.
All right. Take a look at it.
Thank you very much, and think optimistic. You guys, if you need a tour, give me a call. I'd be more than happy to show you guys around. Hopefully not when it's 10 degrees outside, but
Alright.
yeah, well, most of it's, there's 150,000 square feet under roof there. So there's quite a bit of stuff under roof.
Yep.
And there's some really rare stuff there. State archaeologists have told me that the Timberland Museum has got the biggest collection of Indian artifacts, certainly in the state, one of the bigger ones in the nation. And there are more steam engines and big tractors and stuff than you'll find for at least 150 miles. And some interesting cars and trucks and motorcycles and a little bit of everything. There's something there for everyone. We are starting or improving our military museum, by the way, so that's going to get bigger and better.
Military museum.
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch of photos that somebody must have been a photographer in World War II.
Mm.
And I'll have to admit, I saw them in the garbage dumpster by the city hall.
Well,
So I did a little dumpster diving and took, too many of them were in the bottom, and I wasn't gonna jump completely in, but I grabbed a whole bunch of them, and there are a whole bunch of photos of the back scenes of World War II.
well, we would love
And,
to,
would that be something?
yes, if nothing else, we would scan them and give them back to you if you want.
I think they were mine to start with, and when I saw them in there, I'm like, gee whiz, you know. And,
Well-
you know, and to someone else, they must have been a box of old pictures in the basement, you know.
Well, that's the things we're looking for. We've got uniforms, we've got some weapons, not very much, but some. And we've had them in a little room, but we want to expand it into a big room, probably at least the size of this or bigger. And we've got a young lady that's, well, I call her a young lady because she's younger than me, willing to work on it. So that's what we're working on now. I'm trying to raise, matter of fact, I'm going to be writing grants to get about $10,000 for this room to make it bigger and better. So hopefully if we find the money, it's going to be a much better room. Someday give me a call, whatever, and when you bring them down here, I'll come pick them up.
All right.
Appreciate that. Any other questions?
No.
Well, thank you very much, and please think positive.
All right, thanks, Jim.
After I saw what the pictures were, I wish I'd gone to the house.
Well, you know, it's junk to some or treasures to others.
Yeah,
Have you ever seen my dad's pictures?
No,
He was in the Korean War.
yep,
He had a color 35mm camera. There's not a lot of color pictures.
well, if we could scan them, I got them a device at
He's already
home.
got it on a flash drive.
Oh, that's
He's
even
got a
better.
granddaughter, took all the slides and converted them to digital.
Fantastic.
And he has them all tagged exactly who was, mostly who was in there, the generals, because he was at 2 of the peace talks.
Well, if we could get a copy of that, I would
Yeah.
appreciate it. One of the things on our agenda is to get a big TV set and then be able to keep showing some of these pictures on it.
Yeah.
That way it'd be a big screen and people could come in there and they'd be flipping over. We've also interviewed a lot of military veterans and stuff.
Yeah.
We've got them on disc.
A couple years ago, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Riley Lewis and I, Jack Caputo was here then too. It was,
I had a history class of the World Wars when I was at Mankato State, and I still have my textbook from it. When I was out at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., I was watching one of those screens rotate through pictures, and all of a sudden, a whole bunch of pictures out of that textbook that I recognized. And it was really
well, it's something that kids and other adults need to see and need to remember. It's some of the young people, you know, that's all new to them. They haven't seen it. And if you can actually touch some of this stuff or see some of this stuff, it means a lot more, I think. I've sat in history classes where they were pretty boring, but I'm also a history buff. I've read. It doesn't have to be boring.
I remember telling, and I got along with my history coach, was also my football coach, or history teacher. But I remember telling him once, this is what I want to know what all these dead people did for it.
Yeah.
And then after I, you get a little older, I went to college, and this history professor I had there was so unbelievably, I mean, he just made everything. And now if I would have if I'd had him early in my career, I might have changed him in a history major instead.
Well, you could make it come alive, you know.
Yeah, no, he was good.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Try him again. You can hear him? Now drop would be hang up, right? So you wouldn't have to go on the
On my way up.
phone? Yep.
Heard you in the background, ringing me.
Yeah, we're just learning how to run the new phone. I'm in a new position here, so now.
Sure, yeah, phone guy. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have anything to discuss other than what's on the agenda, I guess.
I think since last week I've had,
Yeah, I can't think of anything. Sure.
I've seen there's some pretty big potholes in some of the roads, but it's really pretty hard to contain.
Yeah, you know, they were hoping they'd get another round on them before it froze in the fall, and just the way things worked out this year, everybody was just one step behind, trying to keep up with the weather. So no, you could ask any of them; they're not really excited about how
Some
some
of
of
the high
their
traffic gravels are starting to show dark in the middle, and
yeah, you get this kind of thaw in January, you see some things you don't normally see out there.
so, you don't have anything?
No, I don't listen.
All right. Move on to consider for approval utility accommodation permit for the fiber optic upgrades around rate by WCTA.
Yeah, most of the work that they're planning to do is in existing handholds and pulling new wires through conduits, but and the majority of the work is in the city limits of Rake. But we do maintain the right of way through Rake and the roads around the periphery, so where
It's basically just they're beyond the road. Trucks and stuff, equipment, I suppose.
yeah, and
Not really gonna be digging anything up or.
I think they'll be digging up handholds and spot locations, will be maybe boring some services and that kind of thing. Pretty uninvasive, I would say. Yeah, the rural map doesn't show a whole lot. The urban map shows a little bit more detail what's going on in town, but like I said, most of it's in the city limits. They're kind of clumsy maps. So before I send it back to them, I'll just try to give them some maps of tile locations and things like that that we know of, and do our best to avoid those.
Okay.
they've been good about fixing anything they damage too, so don't have any concerns here.
As long as they don't disturb my mother-in-law.
Maybe hook her up some lightning fast new internet, maybe. Maybe she doesn't care about that.
What's that?
Maybe she doesn't care about getting new lightning fast internet.
Oh. No, I guess, yeah. Not bad, she does use it some though.
Does she?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the utility combination permit for fiber optic upgrades around the rake by WCTA.
I'll second the motion. A motion for Jens Holt and a second for Derby to approve the combination permit for upgrades by WCTA. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Take a signature from you and one from Carla for the signature block there.
Consider for approval a utility accommodation permit for minor overhead electric in King Township, section 24 by Heartland Power.
So just a mile east of Thompson from Highway 9 headed north a little bit to where they were working on building a tower.
Yeah.
So this will be electric to service that tower. So handful of poles and new wire up there, pretty minor project.
Yeah, there's no lines on that road right now. This is right here.
Yeah, they're
Driveway.
Which size is it, which is an existing driveway?
There's a little bit of an angle
All right.
to the existing driveway probably.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the utility accommodation permit for minor overhead electric in King Township, section 24 by Heartland Power.
Second the motion. The motion from Jen Gold, the second from Derby to approve the permit for electric work in King Township by Heartland Power. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Alright, pretty close to this. Yeah, my 30s. Anything else we can?
We could probably number 8 pretty quick.
No, let's wait for Chris.
Yeah, that's a drainage thing.
Terry, I'll take your signatures on that permit too.
Didn't used to see all these transfers to drainage. Something changed or?
It's due to the reclassifications. Some small, like, laterals that we had don't exist anymore, so that she's transferring it from the lateral that didn't exist to what lateral took its place, and
Alright. So number 11, consider for approval auditors transfers. I'll make a motion to approve those transfers.
Second.
A motion from Derby and a second from Jensvold to approve the auditor's transfers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 9:30, Bob Lincoln, CSS, to discuss fiscal year 2020 mental health budget.
Morning, Board. Thank you for the opportunity to share some information with you. I want to just kind of start by giving you a little overview of where our social services is. Since our reorganization, that the first column inside the pamphlet talks about now how we're structured in the quadrants. Winnebago is in the north quadrant and now served by a team of social workers and nurses that serve that area. And then we locate our coordinators as best as we can to cover the geographical area as well. Bobby Jensen, of course, being our coordinator in this area and doing a marvelous job for us. It's this team that's really been able to bend our cost curve, if you will. We finished last year $22 million. This year we're on track to be under $16 million. So we reduced our expenditures by $6 million, actually by expanding services, not by cutting services, by really leveraging Medicaid, making sure people are getting the benefits that they're entitled to. Some of the big things we did was we downsized Scenic Acres to 16 beds, making them Medicaid. So now instead of us paying 100% of those services, Medicaid is taking care of those services. At Prairie View, where we had over 45 folks that we were paying 100% of their care, that's now below 20. So all of that happened through good social work, getting people out in the community, building that capacity. We're still pushing hard against the managed care companies. What we're doing now is we're tracking the delay from referral to enrollment into Medicaid. And each month we track the dollars that we spend on folks that are waiting for Medicaid. And 3 months ago, that was $55,000 a month. Now, again, our team is pushing that down to around $30,000. But there still is that huge lag between eligibility and getting folks enrolled. We would have thought with the privatization of Medicaid that we would have had less bureaucracy, but unfortunately, there's even more process to get people through. And that really becomes a lot of what our team is working on. You go to the next column and it talks about the crisis assistance. That's the efforts the regions are doing to build out that safety net. So that's for all folks. That's for folks on Medicaid, folks without Medicaid. We've got our adult crisis stabilization in Waterloo that was opened in 2012. We're really excited that now that's starting to bill Medicaid. So instead of paying 100% of that cost will start going down. They started billing Medicaid 3 months ago. What we're hoping to do with that savings is to reinvest in that crisis center and make that one of the first access centers for the state. The access centers is a new mandate of 2456, and again, it's that point certain where law enforcement can get people out of corrections, get them into mental health services. So we're very excited about the development of that. We think we'll have a soft opening probably about March 1st. Try to kind of test that. The difference between how we're operating now and being an access center is most of our referrals now are screened through the local hospital or through a clinic mental health center. As an access center, it will be an access point where law enforcement can go directly. Individuals can go directly, and they'll be assessed and admitted. It'll have subacute level of care, and it'll have crisis stabilization level of care. The other piece with the crisis is our iStart program that continues to grow. That's a specialized team for folks with intellectual disability and mental illness. Our coordinator for this area is Tiffany. She is actually now promoted to the team lead, and we'll have a new coordinator for the North Quad, Lonnie Jorgensen. So we're looking forward to having her as an addition. iStart was part of a national research last year and was published in a national journal showing a reduced use of psychiatric hospitalization in emergency departments for folks with intellectual disabilities. We've had 2 other regions expand our iStart program. The East Central region, which is the largest region of over 560,000 folks, is in talks with us to expand iStart to them July 1st. So if we get that expansion completed, we'll have covered over half of Iowa with the iStart program. The last program I'll lift up there is the 24/7 access to psychiatric care at our rural access hospitals. So that's something that we have make available to any hospital that would like to have immediate access to a psychiatrist to help consult with their ED doctor. We are now in West Union, Waukon, I'm going to forget some, Elkader, Charles City. We have access in Pocahontas. I shouldn't have started. I'm going to forget. But the point being that this service not only gives immediate access to psychiatric care to our rural areas, but they'll also help find a bed if that person needs psychiatric care, and then help arrange transportation. Then we have a specialist, a transition specialist, that her job is to help coordinate all these pieces and help these services connect. The last area I want to lift up is just what we're doing with public awareness. County Social Services has funded mental health first aid for over 10 years now. We've trained over 700 people in the community. It's 8 hours of instruction. Just completed 2 courses last week at NIAC. So there's continued interest in this evidence-based instruction. There also was a youth mental health, or there is a youth mental health first aid program, and we had a federal block grant that I think brought that out to a lot of the schools. I think Winnebago was part of that. Mary Shizzle with the Mason City Youth Task Force was making that happen. Again, the whole purpose of that is helping people to recognize mental illness and helping people to get access to mental illness. What we know as a population, people will wait 8 to 10 years from onset of a mental illness to treatment, and mental health first aid is effort to try to reduce that level of distress and getting people help sooner. This also lifts up our collaboration with the Brain Injury Alliance. We were one of the first regions to provide in-kind support to a brain injury coordinator, and she's really been a great resource. June Klein-Bacon, she offices in Waterloo, but she would come out to any of our counties if there was a family member or someone struggling with a brain injury, and there's resources that she could bring from the Alliance. And again, we continue our collaboration with Elderbridge Area Agency on Aging. Again, we think that's a natural partnership. We're both regional, we're both safety net providers. Our folks with disability get older. Their folks get older and have mental illness issues and disabilities. So that continues to be a good partnership. Okay. You can stop me if you have any questions. I'll share with you now the annual report. This is the mandated. Did you want a copy? Would you like a copy too? I'll give you my copy after I go through this. So this is the mandated report that the department requires of us each fiscal year. So this tells us what, in terms of meeting our compliance. The first page is there, just talks about our access standards. We're mandated to make sure services are available not only on a timely basis, but also geographically. So making sure we have mental health and prescriber services in each of our rural counties. making sure we have access to psychiatric care when it's needed, access to job coaching, access to supported community living services. If you flip forward to page 10, there gives you a breakdown of the number of individuals that receive a specific service. And I apologize for the acronyms, but if you look at the first number on that table, 682 people, 682 adults with mental illness receive support for outpatient psychotherapeutic treatment. The rest of those columns represent intellectual disability, developmental disability, and brain injury. And then the A and C in each of those columns represents adults and children. County Social Services has always provided the broadest coverage of diagnostic categories with developmental disability and brain injury, but those are not mandated populations. And so some regions are not providing that coverage. But that kind of gives you an idea of the number of folks that are getting services and the types of services that we're providing. And again, it's quite a menu of services, all the way from some help with maybe a co-payment at the mental health center to institutional care at the mental health institutes. On page 13 then, it gives you first of all the total unduplicated. So we served 5,693 individuals within the region through the fiscal year. 296 of those were children. And then the next graph shows the comparable dollars spent to match the number of people served by each service and each diagnostic category. If you flip to page 17, where we get our revenue, that's no secret to you. All of our revenue comes from property tax. We do get some miscellaneous dollars from Medicaid for the small case management program we still operate. We are getting some revenues from other regions that are running the iStart program, but the bulk of our income is the property tax. The recommended property tax levy for this year is $35.18, the same as we had last year. So we ended our accrual expenditures for FY18 was $20,694,000. Actually, our cash ending cash budget was over $22 million, and so a lot of that had to do with tightening up our reimbursement, and so that caused an increase in expenditures within the fiscal year, and then closing out our case management program. Ending fund balance last year was $6.5 million. So we remain at about a 45% of fund balance.
And you think that's where we need to be at 45%?
Actually, the board has set 30% as the target. 30% would give us just enough cash flow to get between our collection periods. Unfortunately, legislation was passed, House File 504, that requires us to be down to 20% by the end of fiscal year 2020. And what we know is that you can't cash flow at 20%. That if we did get to 20%, we'd have to borrow money between collections. That's on our legislative agenda this year to try to get the legislatures to lift that. But where that comes from is that House File 504, the legislatures, they wanted to expand mental health services. They knew the regions were sitting on over $120 million that was unspent. So House File 504 said, spend the money or reduce your taxes, essentially. And that's where we got House File 2456 that added, that moved a lot of Core Plus services into Core. We can talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, it's from an administrator standpoint, it's always comfortable to have more, but that's obviously not going to be an option. Page 18 is the levies. What House File 504 did allow, though, is it allowed those, we had 2 member counties that could not levy the same per capita because they were locked at a dollar amount that from back in 1996. That dollar amount was lifted, and so now every member county, every member of a region is subject to the cap set for that region. So for county social services, our levy cap is $43.65. So we can't levy more than that. All of our counties in FY18 levied the 33.18 except for Kossuth, which levied 26.14.
What about Butler?
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, Butler was still they were still under that dollar cap because that House File 504 came out so late. But they are up to the 35.18 this year.
Were they short also like Kossuth then?
No, because again they were under that dollar cap, and because that legislation came out after they had set their levy, they were allowed to do one more year under the dollar cap before they were forced up to the per capita. I think Tama was the same where but they were only about 60 cents or so under the 33.18. Good. Then the rest of the report gets into the more detail about the services and the outcomes, some of the research findings of the iStart program, some conversation about the justice program that we ran with Mason City Police. We used our staff, the cost of our staff as a matching for a Department of Justice grant. This really collected some good information for us. We've done a lot of partnering with our sheriffs and our jails, but the downside to that is we're connecting with folks after they're getting either under a court order or after they're involved with the correctional system. What was so different about this program, now we're involved with the police during the 911 calls and coming out before there's charges filed. And we're now looking at and analyzing those 911 calls and how many of those 911 calls should really be mental health response instead of a correctional response. And I have to tell you, it's pretty overwhelming. But that's clearly the direction that we need to go, and that's informing our recommendation to expand mobile crisis July 1st. To increase our capacity to support law enforcement with those needs. So any question about a lot of information in there. Then to kind of bring you up to where we are today, this is the most current monthly summary report. This is the document that we created kind of coming out of our financial struggles and our reorganization process to give a very, very clear picture of where we are financially. So you as the boss know if we're under budget, and if we're not, what's going on.
I'd like to stop.
Yes.
We're the boss
Absolutely.
because we're paying the money,
Absolutely.
but we don't have a vote.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When did we get a vote?
On the CSS board here.
We lost our vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Right.
Okay, so now going back to that
Sure.
part of it, we lost our vote when we didn't agree with the extra bills that came in last year over the levy amount.
Mm-hmm.
So we paid what we thought was this year's levy,
Mm-hmm.
but you applied it to last year's debt and this year's levy amount.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we still don't have a vote.
Mm-hmm.
But technically, if you applied it in that manner, what we were in the arrears for was taken care of, and what we had paid partial on wasn't technically, according to our agreement, more than 90 days past due.
Okay.
So why didn't we have a vote?
Boy, I don't think it was looked at that closely, so I think the
Well,
question needs to
obviously,
be.
it must not matter much then.
Oh, it matters a great deal.
But, you know, we're always outvoted because it's such a large region. So you
Okay.
can see our unrest in this whole situation that we have no vote.
Mhm.
Whether we have a vote or not, basically, our voices aren't heard.
Well, your voices are certainly heard. But in terms of that, the vote and the 28E, I mean, that's really about your relationship with your partners and the contract that you entered. I will facilitate whatever you ask me to. I do work for you. You are my boss. So if
And we
you
weren't
want,
really thrilled with the way you handled the staffing.
okay.
This Paul DeGroot, or whatever his name was, that did the inquiry through the supervisors, when he tried to put words in my mouth when he was interviewing me, I was asked questions, I gave an answer, and then he put words in my mouth. I wasn't too happy with that. And then that eventually led to the release of our most seasoned person in our county. She had more knowledge than pretty much the rest of the region, but yet she was let go because there was disagreements there.
Again, those were board decisions that I was not involved with.
You orchestrated the whole thing.
Oh.
Paul Groof, after hearing the questions that he asked me, asked my fellow supervisors, asked other supervisors from other counties, you will never convince me that that wasn't completely about taking the blame for the budget and everything off of you and blaming it on a single employee who was only approving funding requests under merit, has no idea of the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And you went around to other counties and tried to suggest that Sandy approving funding requests was why we were in the problem we're in.
So again, I don't, I'm not here to change your beliefs, and I understand what you believe in and the feelings involved in that, and so I hear that and understand that, and respect your loyalty to Sandy, and she is a good social worker.
You went to Webster County and told them, when they asked you about WHW and the problems, you suggested that it was just a personality conflict.
Well, again, I don't know what.
This is a budget conflict.
I don't know what conversation you're lifting up, and I'll certainly stand by anything that I said, but I don't recall that conversation or that context. But back to Paul Groof. Paul Groof was retained by the executive committee. I had no involvement in what he was going to ask or what he was going to do. I was subject to that review.
He's doing an HR audit. Why is he asking?
He was doing an HR audit of the whole organization, of which I was subject to. His finding in his report that he submitted was not disclosed to me. I had no knowledge of what was presented. That was presented to the board, and what happened with that recommendation was the action of the board. It was not my action.
Was there an original scope of work that he was given?
By the board, yes, absolutely, yeah.
Where
There was
did the board get that scope of work from?
Gosh, I think from the executive committee, yes.
Where did the executive committee get their scope of work from?
Well, but
Weren't
again,
you orchestrating that?
it's,
I have never seen a meeting where you didn't orchestrate everything.
So you can
So-
see what our fears are in this region.
mhm.
That we're not truly being represented in this region. You know, there are services being provided,
Mhm.
and we think there's a lot of great services there, but we think that if we were allowed by the state, we could do it ourselves,
Sure.
but that's not the way the rules are.
Well, but then there was pilot language granted. And so I certainly did what I could to support if there was 100,000 covered lives was the benchmark they set for you. I certainly would have supported that development. And again, my job is not to make those decisions. My job is to serve the governing board
Those
that's in place.
parameters should have never been set.
Which
If they're gonna allow the 100,000, if they're gonna allow other regions that have well less than 100,000 to exist, why do we have to jump to I mean, that's.
But you're asking me political issues that I have no scope. I had no.
You brought out the 100,000.
No, but that was in terms of getting more control, that was the opportunity that was.
It was set to make it practically impossible for us to do anything.
Okay.
But, you know, and if you're gonna allow Kasuth to, levy less and spend on their fund balance that way, why was it not offered to everybody?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm not doing anything. The board is in mediation with Kasuth. And
Winnebago was about 2% of your budget, and we were 4.5% of your fund balance, I think.
I don't know.
And why, when they came with the legislation, we needed to spend these fund balances down, did we not take the route that like the Northwest region did, and they lowered their levy and spent their fund balances down? Why did we all of a sudden think we needed to spend it all?
And what was all the one-time funding projects?
Well, you're getting ahead of me. We're gonna hit those, but again, I think those are different decisions. So again, those are political decisions. What this board did was having the capacity and having the consensus in the state that mental health is a problem and we should do something about it. We tried to do something about it. And
it doesn't matter how much it costs, right?
It absolutely does matter how much it cost, because it is expensive and it is hard to develop capacity. The Crisis Stabilization Center that we opened was the first in the state. It took about $1 million to $1.2 million a year to support that Crisis Stabilization Center, to support people out of the psychiatric beds. Should have we spent it? I don't know. Now it's covered Medicaid services. It's going to be sustained by the larger system. More crisis stabilization centers were opened throughout the state. I think that was a good decision. But you can argue we didn't need to do it. We didn't need to spend that money. That's fine. That's your opinion, and I respect that. The iStart program, that was a huge investment to build up that talent and that ability to serve the most complex folks, to connect with a national database, to figure out folks with autism. And we opened the first autism center in this area through One Vision, and we had families coming from 100 miles, and so relieved to finally be able getting that capacity. We spent the money to do that, and now Medicaid is paying for that. We spent nearly $200,000 to help get that started. Should have we spent it? I don't know, but I thought that was a good investment, and the board affirmed that. So those are the kind of investments we made. Now County Social Services is in a position, when we look at the mandate for 2456, that you now have to provide ACT. You do have to provide crisis response. Now you do have to provide all these services that we led to provide. We have a lot shorter distance to go than the other regions. So you will see our levy come down and those other regions' levies come up.
Everybody's levies are going to go up.
Well,
that's why there's legislation right now to uncap the levies for mental health and make it easier to raise them, because they see this great big old cash cow out here in the property tax world, and they're going to skewer it.
Right. So I respect your politics on that.
And when I talk about what you misrepresented down there in Webster County, which you may or may not remember, but
I'm sorry.
And it's not a personality conflict, Bob. This is an issue, a trust issue, and one of the best examples I have of that is when we were over in Cerro Gordo County, and discussing creating our own region. And then you passed out this sheet. This showed what the levies were back in the 90s and what the levies were now.
Right.
And you were scared, especially Tim and Casey over there in Cerro Gordo, you know, they were scared to death that, you know, oh my gosh, the levy was in the 80s back in the 90s, and it's only in the 30s now.
Right.
And you were gonna let that paper stand on its own,
Well,
the way it was.
Well, they were.
But if you took our levy today and took what Medicaid and what private health insurance now pays, our levy would be in the hundreds. So you either were ignorant of the facts or you were purposely trying to deceive and mislead us with that sheet. The only reason it ever got brought out at that meeting was Ken Abrams called you on it.
So
which one is it?
Well, I don't accept your characterization of that at all. What I was sharing with you were facts. They were actual levies.
They were actually facts that were
They
going
were-
to stand on their own, where other people were going to get the wrong idea of it, that, oh my God, we don't want to go back to this. I mean, which is it, Bob? Either you were ignorant of it or you were purposely trying to deceive.
I'm not sure what you're saying in terms of deception. I mean, I'm not. So what do you think I was? I was giving facts of what the levies
You were against
were.
us creating our own region, in a sense. You did not want that to happen, and you brought a sheet that was going to change as many supervisors' minds as possible.
Oh, I think I had very little to do with those meetings. I didn't attend many. I don't think I did anything to derail that process. Again, you're drawing me out of my scope. I'm an administrator. I'm charged to serve the elected officials, and that's why I'm here today.
You floated something out that completely misrepresented the characterization of the levies.
So what did
That is, that's your opinion, but that's not the
I'll
fact.
ask you,
Sure.
the information you handed out, how
Yes.
did you feel that was relevant to our discussion down there?
Well, because the question that was constantly being asked of me is, what are we getting out of that? Winnebago puts in X amount of dollars, do we get X amount of dollars back? And that's a false premise. And this gets very complicated and it's hard for folks to follow, but
And that's why they complicate things, so normal people can't follow.
Well, let's drill it down so we can all understand. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about a very imperfect tax to support a human service need. It doesn't. You can argue at the basis that there's no reason we should be using property tax for mental health services, and if we start there, then the conversation is over. Now, if you want to follow the conversation, say, okay, we should use property tax to support mental health needs. We should levy people's homes to support mental health services. Okay, where does that conversation take you? How do we make that fair? And that's where we end up on this winding road. So where were we 100 years ago? Well, because the state said we want this to be done locally, the tax that was there was property tax. So you levied property tax.
It's not being done locally.
But, well, follow, stay with me here. So where we were was, okay, if the property taxpayers are going to pay this bill, then by gosh, we only want to pay for our folks. What comes out of that? A concept called legal settlement. And you've been around long enough, you remember what that was. So that meant if somebody grew up in Winnebago County, had a disability that you were funding, it did not matter where they went in the state, you sent your money to wherever they were. And the matter of however many years ago, not that many years ago, 5-10 years ago, you were sending money to Council Bluffs, to Des Moines, to Iowa City, because that's what I was doing in serving the counties that I had. That was a very imperfect system. Regions came out of that notion, how do we get out of legal settlement so we take responsibility for residents? And the only way to do that was to create areas that were large enough where it would all wash out. And that's why regions were created. And that's what I was trying to get, trying to help member counties to realize that you can't go back to we put these dollars in and we get these dollars out, because we don't pay counties. We don't pay you back for mental health services. You raise levy for the region to buy services for folks with mental health and disability needs within the region, and that money goes to providers that deliver that service wherever those providers are, okay? And so if you have a large provider, a lot of dollars are going to flow into. And if the message to me as an administrator, we still want the same amount of money spent in our county as we give, then it's an impossible administration task. So you want us to move folks with disability needs into your community. You want us to build capacity in your community so all your dollars stay in your community. That's hard to do.
It's not necessarily what we want either.
Okay, but that's what I was trying to. That was what I was trying to demonstrate.
We just think that we can find all these services on our own without the help of anybody else.
I'm sorry?
We believe that we can find the services on our own without, all we gotta do is hire providers to take care of, you know, we just gotta know where to take our people.
I think we can do it on a much smaller county scale. 22 counties is just too big.
The only reason I can see for regions is to create that shock absorber effect. If you have expensive individuals in one county doesn't have to put the whole bill. Everybody
It's
kind
just
of
like
puts the
group
whole
health
bill.
insurance.
Did you have a question, EJ?
Mr. Lincoln,
Yes,
am I to understand this correctly? In your initial statement, you're making the point that we're sending people pell-mell throughout the state to get mental services. And then in your second statement, you're saying that we're sending them to professionals in locations in the state, and we're still spending the same amount of money. In other words, you're still sending them different directions, and you're still sending the money. It's just going through another entity to get there.
Well, yes and no.
So what's the purpose then of the region if the region is taking the charge of the money that the county would be able to utilize and send?
Because what you're describing is a previous system with legal settlement, and then that's how that worked. Because Winnebago County was responsible for people from Winnebago County, and they could send that money wherever they wanted and send those folks wherever they wanted to get care. And we did that for over 100 years.
And the people that have been there the longest that you made sure we got rid of, none of you think that we're going in the right direction. The people that have been around mental health for years and years do not believe that the direction that we are heading now, not just our region, mental health in general is not heading in the right direction.
Okay, so tell me what that means.
That means that we could take care of things ourselves much better and much cheaper.
I still don't know what that means. I mean, what do you...
All right, I'll use the ISTAR team as an example. It costs Winnebago County $30,000 a year to use the ISTAR team, and I believe we've had one individual helped by the ISTAR team, so that's $30,000. I think we could have found that person the care that they needed for a lot less than that. Worth County has had zero. Kasuth County may have had one, so there's $60,000 that they've got. They could have saved a lot of money by taking care of that individual themselves.
Mm-hmm. So how do you propose to do that? How do you want to do that?
All you got to do is find the right provider. All you got to know is that people are having mental health issues, and Sandy's been around people with mental health issues for years, or other people. All you got to do is know where to take your people, to which provider they need to be taken to.
Okay, so the people we're talking about, for the most part, get stuck institutionalized. We still have over 500 people at Woodward and Glenwood. We have people that are sent out of state at well above, $6,000 to $1,000 a day. People are sent to Carbondale. People are flown to Tampa. The iStart is the model that we're using to meet the new mandate for IRSH homes, intensive residential support homes. by 2021, we'll be required to provide at least 20 slots for complex folks that we're going to wrap around and keep in our community versus send them out. Finding the right providers. When we talk to providers, providers are running very thin. They, in a managed care environment, they're not going to take on the outlier without the resources and the compensation to make that work. Otherwise, their business model collapses. And that's what we have to do as a region, is how do we support those providers with that additional capacity. And that's what they're telling us that they need. That iStart team brings a prescriber who understands the unique needs of folks with intellectual disability and mental illness. And she said, and this is Amber, and she makes the comment, it's pretty profound, she spends more time taking people off medicine than putting them on medicine. Because we know as a population, we tend to over-medicate this population to manage their behaviors.
You know, what we need to be able to do is, if the sheriff has them or their relatives or someone else, all we got to do is be able to take them to 5 East and they can make all of those.
These folks don't belong in 5 East.
No, they don't know where they need to go.
No. This population in the iStart model really, they need a controlled environment, and they do really poorly in a psychiatric unit. And that's one of our real challenges with reform is we've dumped all.
We can find a controlled environments on our own.
Well, okay, I mean, I'll give you that, sure. So how can I help you do that? I guess I don't know why we have to argue this point, but
yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that you're going to allow us the same opportunity to spend our fund balance down that the Cassup County is getting, and other counties have.
Again, I don't know why you asked me like I have the authority. That you're talking about board decisions, mm-hmm. and you can bring that to the executive committee. But what you'll see in the January meeting is a draft proposal from the mediation to try to resolve that levy deficit with Cassup.
Yes, we'll officially request our mediation after that.
Well, yeah, I think that, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, another thing at the last meeting, you said the budget, is in really good shape and all that, and
that's what I was just going to go over with you here.
And then I find out that we're paying Eldora for stuff that happened back in March. Are we that in arrears with a lot of our bills that we don't know about? Well, I mean, one thing we need to have maybe is on the payment register is we need to have the date of service on there on that payment register.
Of course,
the service was provided here, it was paid for here, so we can tell the difference.
That's all tracked, absolutely.
It's not on anything that I see.
Well, I can certainly provide that with you. It's in our system. Absolutely. We track.
Are we in arrears with a lot of other providers?
Well, there maybe what you're referring to is a provider that has chosen not to bill us in a timely fashion, or
I understood that wasn't the case.
Okay. Well, if you have a specific issue, we'll chase it down and I'll get you the answers. But we have some claims that aren't clean claims that we're not comfortable with the bills that are presented, and so we chase those down until we're satisfied and we pay them. But we're very current with our providers that are billing clean. There's always those outliers and those issues. There's always the providers that, for whatever reason, they choose not to bill on a timely fashion. But I think what you'll see in this report, and I appreciate the question because it really drives this report home. If you look at this, and what we do with this is we take the financial reports from our Butler fiscal agent and we put it on one page so you can see real quickly where we're at. So again, as the boss, up the top here, you look at the year-to-date, 50% of the year has transpired. The bottom right, 43% of the budget has been expended. The first column is the budget. We're budgeted to spend $18.3 million this year. The prior month on this report would be November. So in November, we spent $1,247,000. In December, we spent $1,213,000. And then by the time of the board meeting, you'll see the January 2019 claims run, which will give you the total of what we spent in January. So you'll have 3 months of our expenditures. And again, we're trying to be very aggressive on paying every provider every month. And then if we're seeing a significant change in that, then footnoting that for you and drilling down to see why it's lower than it should or higher than we expect it to be.
How does this report compare to the one that you put together last year, or did you put one together last year similar to this?
No, I think we developed this. Boy, time goes so
You thought
quickly.
we were doing well a year ago.
Right. So no, absolutely. So where we ran into problems, I'm trying to get my time frames. Coming out the last fiscal year, we were just about 3% over budget in August or September, and so we were off track to begin the year, and we should have identified that sooner. What I thought it was because we were downsizing from case management, and I thought that the downsizing would have corrected it, but it
According to Jody Draper, you knew about all this and didn't tell us any of it until the last second. The board, the CSS board.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Okay.
Did you ever answer Terry's question on
I'm sorry?
on that sheet you gave out over at Saratoga, what your intent with that was?
Well, I
That
gave.
went on a long.
I know, it did. So what it was showing was there was a column of what property taxpayers were paying before redesign, before there were regions. And what that was intended to show was there was quite a disparity even back then. Some counties were spending a lot and some counties not spending much at all. And so not only was the intent of the region to get rid of legal settlement so that you didn't have to do this, follow people and drive all over the state, which didn't make sense from a service standpoint. It also equalized, so everybody was entitled to the same menu of service. Access is still a challenge, and we work on that every day. But everybody within the 22 counties is entitled to the same level of services. And that was not true in legal settlement. So that's what I was trying to communicate there.
Was that sheet? I don't think so.
Well, again, you seem to know what I intended with that sheet, but what I'm trying to tell you is what the thinking I was trying to bring. And again, going back to this whole notion that a county can raise money and spend that money in their county to take care of their folks. And the system, the stakeholders said they don't believe that is a good idea. And you can argue that it is, but I'm just saying the representatives of Iowa created this regional system.
Well, I can understand why you wouldn't have made sure that on that sheet it was explained how much Medicaid and private insurance now pays for. So you would get the whole picture.
Well, but again, that's
Because the effective levy would have been in the hundreds. If you take Medicaid and private pay insurance out of that picture, out of that 33.
That's
if
true.
You had that, it would be in the hundreds. And
That's true.
And I just can't understand why. I mean, why you wouldn't have communicated it that way at that specific meeting without some intent.
And going back to last year, our what I would call the effective cost to our taxpayers when we had the extra billing ended up being over $53 per person levy.
Mm-hmm.
And well above the cap, but somehow we can work around that because of the Fund 10 cash balance.
Mhm.
I guess I didn't see where the value was in some of those one-time programs.
So the one-time programs, they're not one-time programs. There's no programs that we've discontinued. Every program other than the Lifelong Links call center, which in reality we stopped purchasing that from Area Agency on Aging, and we brought that in-house now. Now we have our administrative staff answering the phone and routing the 855 number, so you can call that. In fact, you can call that 24/7 because we have somebody answering it during the day, and then after the hours we have folks on call. The investment that we were making, the largest investment we were making last year was in the Assertive Community Treatment Team in Waterloo. This was our second Assertive Community Treatment Team. House File 2456 mandates that the state have 22 of these teams. This is an evidence-based way to provide psychiatric care to folks with a serious and persistent mental illness in the community. When we launched this program with RHD out of Pennsylvania, our trust and our confidence was that Medicaid would have picked that up a year sooner. And so we were stuck paying for what was a Medicaid service through last year that had probably an economic impact of between $700,000 and $900,000. They finally did. In fact, January of last year, I communicated with the department and with RHD and with the MCOs. If you don't get this contract going, we're shutting this down. We can't continue to sustain this program. And things then moved very, very quickly. So by the end of last fiscal year, we moved folks off of our funding. They remain on our funding because the state does not have that service at a sustainable level. So we're still spending about $200,000 this $200,000 to $300,000 this year to subsidize that Medicaid plan. But the state is promising us that they're going to review that, and there has been a recommendation from the department to actually do a 30% increase to that rate, so that's sustainable. So now we're serving 80 folks in the community in Black Hawk and surrounding areas that now is primarily being paid by Medicaid. And we've been able to use that service to move folks out of residential facilities, which has saved us considerable money. So that investment, that money that you didn't like us spending, that returned us a lot of savings this year because we were able to reduce our expenditures by $6 million. And that's what these new services are about. What does the community need? What are the gaps? Let's fill it with evidence-based practice. Let's prove that it works, and then let's get Medicaid to pay for it. And that's exactly what we're doing with the iStart program. We're retaining Jim Aberg. He's going to work with the state. We have the founder of the iStart out of the University of New Hampshire. She's met with the managed care companies in Iowa at least 3 times, and she's meeting with them at the corporate level in Washington, D.C. and Minnesota as well. And so we hope that we're on the brink of getting Medicaid to sustain this service, because we don't want to be paying 100% of this service with property tax dollars. Okay. I know I'm not changing minds here, but I hope I'm giving you some good information anyway.
Is there any other information?
Yes, I do. One more. You're very...
We're running into somebody else's.
You bet. And this is the document that then moves us into next year. So based on the first, again, this is off the same template as last year. So if you look at the first column, that's our budget that you see from the monthly summary. Then you go into the next column, And this is us re-estimating where we think we're going to be based on our 6 months experience. And we think we're going to end this year at $15,655,000. So that's a significant reduction from last year. So using that projection, if we can stay on target there, we're using an inflation factor of 3% to create our next year's budget, with the addition of $1 million for the mobile crisis. The CSS board I've got 3 scenarios there, but the CSS board voted to stay at the current levy of $35.18. We also gave scenarios for a $2 reduction and for a $1 increase. Based on this budget projection and that $1 million, we put the $1 million in our operating budget because Medicaid is still not reimbursing much of that. The regions that have been doing mobile crisis for a few years, they're still paying nearly all of that cost. So we're going to have to plan to pay that for the next 2-3 years anyway. But we do think we'll have $1.5 million for one-time investment. And what we need to invest in to meet the 2456 is to get an assertive community treatment team in this quadrant, probably based out of Mason City, but could easily serve Winnebago. And then another team out of the East Quadrant, out of the Decorah West Union area. And then we're setting aside enough money to invest in an access center in the West Quadrant, probably in the Fort Dodge area. And then presuming that if you were to leave the region on June 30th, we've set aside $608,000, which would be a per capita allocation of what the fund balance would be at that time. And then if you look at the bottom, then there's a lot of other operating assumptions. Country View, which was a Blackhawk County owned and operated nursing facility for folks with complex needs, that sale did close the end of December. We were spending the last few months about $55,000 a month. That will go away, and so that will be reducing our expenditures going into the last half of the fiscal year.
So tell me, the people that we were paying for in that facility, were we paying for people in the facility, or were we just paying for the
No, we were
facility?
just subsidizing Blackhawk County because they owned it.
Is that the way it was, or were we paying for people?
We were paying in what we called enhanced behavioral supports to folks in that setting. It was a nursing facility, but in terms of the average age, it was a much younger population. It really was folks primarily with disabilities.
So at least
But-
the next question.
Yep.
Then that place was sold. Are those people being taken out then?
No, the people are staying there as far as I know. I mean, it's under private management, and they'll make those decisions based on their business model. But we won't be subsidizing the behavioral services at that setting. And then the other savings that we're going to see, hopefully going forward, is the continued reduction of the cost of the crisis center as Medicaid continues to pay for that. The things we would like to reinvest in that we still think we need is more peer recovery expansion across the region. We want to be able to have peers located in each of our member counties. We want to make a stronger investment in job development. Our other regional partners have made that more of a priority than we have, and we want to catch up there. We want to reestablish our capacity to have crisis stabilization for our young folks. We had, the North Quadrant had the pilot project with Francis Lauer, and that was one thing that we did shut down July 1st. What we'd like to do is to open that back up. Francis Lauer has offered to sell us 2 beds that would be available to any young person in the region. And we've had those young people get stuck in the emergency room. We had a 12-year-old over in Waukon that was in the emergency room for over 2 weeks. If we would have had this bed, we could have moved her into that crisis bed and got her connected with the services that she needs.
So why did we shut it down?
Again, it was a cost-saving measure because we weren't mandated to provide children's services, and it was only serving one area of the region. So now when we go back, we want to make sure whatever we're doing is available to everyone.
The budget was in trouble, so you had to cut it.
It very much was in trouble, yeah. But again, we look at those children on a case-by-case basis. We still serve a lot of families. We do a lot of care coordination with our families. Even with the Autism Center, we were spending $250,000 a year to support children going to the Autism Center. But when Ashley started working with those families, she was able to get all of those children on some kind of insurance or Medicaid to pay for their services. So we're now not funding any of the Autism Center, but everybody is getting services that had them before. So we're really happy about that. But I really appreciate this exchange and you sharing your concerns with you. I know last year was a very, very difficult year, and I certainly was responsible for a lot of that.
You know, if you'd have just owned it in the first place instead of trying to blame some stuff on Sandy, that would have been a lot easier to stomach.
Again, I don't accept your characterization. What I attempted to do was to be as honest and transparent with the board as I could. And so when I analyzed what had gone on, clearly as the person responsible, I should have known it was going to happen. I should have done something to change it. But I think that was, again.
You don't necessarily need to do something to change it, just communicate it. Without saying that other employees approved the funding requests. When I hear that coming back from other counties, talking to supervisors at either CSS meetings or other meetings, I lost respect for you when I heard that. I did not want to believe it.
Sure. The frustration was we knew we had a structural problem in 2016, and we just got locked and we couldn't move forward, and we spent too much time fussing. I mean, there was a fix, and while we struggled to move forward, that's when things weren't running as well as they should have been. And to the extent that I failed to get the board to move forward, I'm responsible for that. You're absolutely right.
Well, I think we pretty much covered it.
I think so. I appreciate it. All right,
Thank you for coming.
You bet.
Kristen?
Back.
I think I need to take a break.
Sit too long. You leaving? Huh? We got drainage coming up. That's much more exciting than this one. Oh, come on.
Sorry. Hey, I can always watch it on YouTube if I.
Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah, you catch the highlights there. He's the CEO, right? Yeah. Ooh.
my head around some of the things he said. Can't put a finger on it.
Auditor's office will discuss drainage matters.
Oh, Carla, or?
She's here.
I'm here. I don't have anything that's not on the agenda.
I've heard they are working on DD1 pipes.
Okay,
They're by Grace Branstad right now.
Okay.
Mike was telling me that, so.
okay. I know that Derek from Jacobson Westergaard is gonna come be checking today, so, on some stuff, but
Okay, that's about all I need.
Yeah, I guess I don't have any either.
Consider for approval adding Brant Highland to approved drainage contractor list. Have you vetted him, talked to him at all, or?
no.
Don't we usually do at least a discussion between yourself and the company before we?
You guys wanted to add him, so I didn't.
Well, okay, so far you've worked with them on billing.
They've sent me invoices.
Properly,
Mm-hmm,
it's identified good, because sometimes that's a problem, is it?
Right,
Is it
right.
really a?
right. No, he seems to be fine. People have had him do work, and he's done fine, so. I didn't talk to him.
You wouldn't have anything against this, no concerns with making it, because we're having a hard time finding people, especially to the smaller projects.
We sure are.
And there's not enough, there's no other contractors within, so, and these people actually do farm ground
Okay.
in Winnebago County. Kind of like be the same situation as South, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, it was up to you, so.
Well, I'll make a motion to add Brant Tiling to approved drainage contractor list.
I'll second the motion. On the motion from Bill and a second from Terry to approve the Brant Tiling to the approved drainage contractor list. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consider for approval quotes for clean out of DD5 main ditch, lat 20 and lat 27.
Well, I only got one, so. I know a couple had commented on it, but nobody else brought in a bid, so.
There was a deadline.
I'm sorry?
Was there a deadline?
Yesterday. And this will be up to you guys if you want to accept it or if you want to do anything different.
Person contracting the original project.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a footage on this one?
I had the main ditch was 28,414 linear feet. Lat 20 was 5,600 and lat 27 was 2,890.
So about 36,000, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's going to be billed separately, so.
I'm just trying to get a
Total
footage.
footage.
Yeah. Now, who determines the riprap needed? Since we don't have an engineer,
Right.
would Mark maybe make that determination? I would think that would be proper. The engineer's office would be in charge of that.
And maybe because it slept in so soon, they thought that that would be a help.
So this is at Mike's history. You okay with this?
Yeah, it looks,
I think it's reasonable.
yeah, it looks reasonable to me, so.
Okay.
All right, I suppose you need a motion, right?
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to approve the quote from Larson Contracting for the clean out of DD5 main ditch, lot 20 and 27.
I'll second it.
And how much is it for?
Oh,
Well, it's, on,
is there a total on the back page?
no, it's 15,113 on DD5. Lot 20 would be 2390. Lot 27 would be 2,044, and then it's $50 a ton for the riprap.
Paul's done a good job in the past.
So what I'll do is I'll get with Mark and have him talk to Larson so they can coordinate that.
Did you say?
If I didn't, I meant to.
We did.
We didn't vote on it.
No, you
No.
didn't.
All right. Do we need to stamp it? All those in favor of the contract with Larson Contracting for DD5 main ditch, lot 20 and 27, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Is there a signature part of it?
And this must be just.
Down payment based on completion. You all right with a 20% down payment?
No. Darren Hazel is not familiar with how we do that.
Well, we accept the quote, but we'll have to approve the
Mhm.
contract.
Yeah.
We don't have, I wouldn't say we have a contract yet.
Yeah.
Just like everything else, you accept the quote,
Right.
but the
Right.
contract maybe.
This is just an estimate. This Darren person must not understand what we do.
It's probably what they do with the private, but they don't.
Yeah.
Should I have Kelsey contact them
Or-
about, or just have Chris? or-
Chris, that's not the way we do business.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, they.
And I'm sure there's
they
people
work
there
with
that
us
will
enough
tell him
before
that
they
that's
know.
not the
Right,
way it
and I
happens.
don't know if he's new, I don't,
He's been
that's,
there.
So it's not he's done them all.
okay.
He's been there a while, but maybe not done any drainage.
Is that
Good
anything standard?
I would say, don't we have a motion to
Yeah.
quote, I don't know.
Because we're not
Yeah, it's just-
technically
We're
approving.
not-
It's not a contract.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
We're gonna accept the quote, now we'll make a contract.
because we don't accept the terms on the.
Okay. Well, we gotta do number 10, discuss annually employee handbook. You wanna? lead
So,
us out?
the reason this is on the agenda, because the sheriff's deputies requested parents being 5 days, like children and spouses, and it was approved for the sheriff's deputies. So,
We were gonna follow up with it
we
to
request that
put
it,
that for all employees, right?
So the actual change is what? The parents?
parents,
Was not part of it.
right.
Parents was only 3 days.
Only 3 days,
Right.
and they wanted parents to be
That's
5
the
days.
only change.
Yep.
Any comments?
Makes sense to me, I guess.
It could be,
We've both been through it recently, and it takes quite a bit of time, and
it's maybe even be more time than a child in a sense, because you've got their estate to go
Figure
through
out.
and figure out. It's-
And, did you ever touch base with Mike Galloway? There's no problems. As long as everybody has the same
I
plan.
think
we should
kind of
be
today,
okay.
or the day we did it, he was
Okay.
seem to have any red flags that day, so.
No.
Other than it's different than everybody else. That's what we're
I
trying
don't
to
know, we saw that red flag ourselves, I guess, in a sense. I don't know if I can remember you saying anything about it.
He didn't say anything.
Well, I think it should be across the board that way. So it's not non-actionable though.
It says discuss.
So I think it's worth putting on the agenda to change the policies. Was there other things in policy book you were going to be looking
You know, we haven't done an update for the policy book in a while, so it probably wouldn't hurt to have Mike get the whole thing on once over.
I think they're all outdated. I mean, as far as the current policy. It needs to be updated just in the printing for the most part. So probably should be done. Any idea what that would run us? Is it going to be within our budget?
I will,
Since this was a negotiation here, do we want to wait till next year?
we could wait till 20. And,
Maybe have the department heads look it over and see if there's any
Have a
changes.
good day, AJ.
Anything that's we thought had been changed but hasn't been put into the policy book, type thing. We should do that. But I still think we need to probably address the funeral aid.
That's fine. I did not intend for it not to be an actionable item when I put it on the agenda, so.
We'll just
Waive procedure and do it.
It's up to you.
oversight on
Yeah, no, it's, I assumed that it was gonna be on there for approval, so.
That was our intent. I'll make a motion to approve the change in the policy handbook to include parents at 5 days instead of the existing 3 days.
I'll second it.
On a motion from Derby and a second from Jen's vote to approve the policy handbook change. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Open forum.
I have something.
Oh, boy.
I'm just wondering what is happening with our county Veterans Affairs office. And the reason I'm asking, I had a customer yesterday come in and it was a widow lady and she wanted her deceased spouse's DD-214, and we didn't have an actual DD-214. We had an affidavit of a lost one, which I don't know if that will help her or not, but she said she'd been to the office down there every day last week and could not get anybody.
There is a difficulty.
There's a note on the door.
And I guess I'm wondering, how do I stay abreast of this? I mean, I'd like to be in the know on this stuff because I work with it every day.
Currently, there is a vacancy,
Okay,
but there's also a vacancy on their board.
They have 2 board members resign.
Well,
So
yeah.
they don't have a way to hire somebody to replace that person.
okay,
So we're working on that appointment. We've got it on our agenda on Friday to address that part of it, so they can make that decision who they're gonna hire.
What agenda Friday?
We have budget discussions on Friday, and we put it on the agenda to
Okay,
appoint, whether it's on an interim basis or a permanent appointment to the.
And that was on the agenda for Tuesday. The Friday agenda was with it.
okay. So, yeah,
And you can
I just-
always ask. I probably should have sent an email letting people know what was going on.
Yeah,
but
well,
I've
especially
been-
me, because I have a lot of questions from people that,
But I've been in here every day working on budgets, so I just kind of forgot. But please just ask if you have a question. I'd be glad to answer it.
okay,
We're trying to get it addressed right now.
yeah, because then Denny's Aaron did call later, and he was like, well, is he the only one right now?
Right
Yes.
now.
Okay,
And we were supposed to have Missy Walker that was covering this time of year, but she decided it was too much. But now we're trying to fill that position.
He's in Florida and.
Yeah, that's what you're
nobody's
saying
here.
until
He's
April.
working from Florida, but he
Yeah.
can only do so much from Florida.
Yeah, and this unfortunately is their busy time, I guess.
Yeah, because this gal was gonna go to Cassuth County, but she didn't know what else to do.
Mason City has been pretty good too.
Okay.
We've gotten help from there.
Like I said, there should be a note.
Yeah, he told me then that there
On the
was,
door.
but she must not have seen it, or I don't know.
Sometimes you look at a door, you're just looking in through the door to see if
Yeah.
somebody's there.
Okay,
I've done that. All right, thank you.
great, thanks.
Sorry.
Other than you don't have anything for open forum, do you? You don't have anything for open forum?
I don't think so.
I still have more open forum.
Where's Brent tiling out of?
Just barely south of the Winnebago line out by Bruce out there.
That's just.
They're the ones that usually do the work at the golf course.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. Because they're right there, and they always get there in a, relatively timely fashion, and they're reasonable.
We're looking at, I talked to Dean Beacon the other day. I told him we were gonna try to replace a line coming off his boundary and through the Quam, and maybe I could talk to that guy close by there.
Yeah. Is that line running off to the southeast from that main tile and
It runs from, not far, from the east road, come in about 100 yards, 150 yards, and there's a little wet spot
there's
there.
a wet spot right there?
Yeah, and
It's been spot dug already.
yeah, they
Yeah.
did a tile search before we replaced that stretch of the main.
Yeah.
Over a year ago.
Yeah.
And when we dug in there, it was, because the main wasn't working, there was no way to know for sure if that tile was working.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it is.
Well, it didn't seem like it was anyway, in a sense, but the way this hole was dry, and it's, you got nothing,
Yeah,
whole safe full.
so might just replace a section of it or try to determine if it's completely plugged up and just run a new stretch in there and be done with it.
Yeah.
Put some non-perf on some of that, so.
Yeah, except for, actually, practically all you have to do is put non-perf all the way, except for a little bit in his field, put an intake.
That's what I said, we'd, that first 100 feet maybe use perforated so we don't pond it on our side either to affect him. And yeah, an intake would be a good idea too.
Yep, so it's just all done and, yep.
It's already been through the process, so that's just the final.
And then, is this something you want on the agenda?
Bill, have you had anybody talking with EDF about wind rights agreements, the good neighbors? Have you heard of that?
Well, there's been a lot of talk of it, yeah.
Yeah, they sent us a letter and then we talked to them. I had Kelsey look it over. The Quam Wildlife Area and the Deering Tracts are eligible.
Yeah.
And in our case, we can't build on those properties anyway, so it would
Yeah.
kind of a no-brainer if Kelsey will sign off on it.
You should still get $20 an acre or whatever it is because they use your wind rights around you or whatever.
Yeah, essentially it just says you're not gonna allow structures to be built that would interfere.
Yeah, and they're gonna pay you so much.
25 an acre per year for 30-some years, I think.
There was some concern on the, whether you could build a grain leg or not.
Yeah, there's something in there, in the fine print about legs.
But they've never had an instance where somebody wasn't able to build a grain leg, so, as far as what I understand, so.
So they're kind of going above and beyond what the other wind farms have done as far as.
There are a lot of things better in this new contract than were in the ones that were from the past, yes, which includes bigger setbacks.
No.
There's still some things in it that I don't like. One of them's a gag order. Once you cite it, you can never talk to it about anybody, with anybody. So this guy got 15,000 for his turbine, and this guy only got 10.
Oh, I didn't know.
Communicated it and found out they'd be in violation of their contract.
And it's forever, even if they go defunct.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, Kelsey had looked at it. She had a list of things that she wanted to talk about.
That's just a completed one we already got.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on to discussing budgets.
Are we going to?
I assume you didn't put that on the agenda.
I guess if you want to, you can put it down. Take it.
I think, I'll keep my mouth shut.
Robert, I don't know if there was changes to what you gave me yesterday, but I didn't.
3 line items under our roadside budget. The numbers, the bottom line was the same. We just changed the line items within that budget slightly.
So when we get there, you want to just tell them, because I haven't, like I said, I haven't had time to.
Conservation budget, there's no changes, just roadsides. There's a number of line items in there that have gone from being budgeted this year to nothing next year because we're using different numbers. Chris wanted to switch us over to some line item numbers that were more appropriate, I guess. Better descriptions. And our health insurance, because what we actually had in the line item this year, we were over budgeted slightly. So with the increase that you had told us to include, I didn't have to change our actual number.
Okay. And I don't know if you used 3% or the 10%, but.
I think I started out with 10 and I think I switched to 3%. Is that what, I believe that's how you, so that worked.
Good deal.
I don't have any major, in our conservation budget, no major changes.
No, I think it's
Pretty static.
actually slightly
Slightly lower.
10,000 less than last year.
Yeah.
Any plans on land acquisition?
No, don't have any plans. We've done, this current year, we've done a couple of things with the Gruis recreation area, so we expended some money that we hadn't planned to, but that was all money in, money out for a mower.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Paid off a mower, they paid off a mower. Well, they paid off the one that they just bought in full. And then the other one, we were buying that on a lease agreement, and they made the final payment here just this past month. So that's paid off. But
leased to own thing or whatever.
Yeah, it was leased with the intent of buying it. Yeah. So they did that. And things like our REAP budget, that's all. The legislators set the annual REAP appropriation, so we're assuming it's going to maybe slightly lower this year. Our special projects are, those line items are for specific parks and wildlife areas that there's money in, money out for. The money we generate from like the Florence Recreation Area trap range, that goes to pay the bills for the utilities and for the the equipment, the mowing, the targets that the kids use. Same at the Hogsback target range. We have donations there and some small grants that pay the bills there for porta potties and some other upkeep. We're still looking at continuing to lease a tractor, as long as Mason City Red Power is willing to keep working with us.
What's that per hour?
We raised it, I think it's 22 maybe. So it's gone up a little bit, but it's still it's below the.
It's below the.
Normal, I think, is closer to 33 or 4.
Yeah.
Our nature center construction budget, we haven't taken any money out of that this current year. And if our funding, we'll reevaluate our funding and levels in about May and see if we're in the position where we can start letting bids. But things have been going pretty well, and it's looking like that's a good possibility.
Where have your major benefactors for that been so far?
The largest, well, we just got one from the Winnebago Industries Foundation this past week for $25,000. The largest that it had been so far was, I think 3M was 30 or 27. That might have been the highest. The Farrier Foundation out of Mason City, I think, was 10. Kenny Lindstrom was 25, I believe. So those have been the largest. And then we've got a number of 10,000 from private individuals. We've got 3 for 10. We got a lot of $1,000 checks. We set a goal, a certain percentage we wanted to get, like from private individuals, small businesses, and we're 40% past that right now. So we're going to raise that into 50,000, I think. We've got kind of a top 200 list that we did a mass mailing of 4,500. Those letters, donations trickle in. And then we identified people that we thought had a higher likelihood of donating, maybe because they have an interest, they have kids, grandkids. So just about everybody that we sit down and talk to is willing to donate something. So
you went with Krista Heidemann to help you out?
Yeah, we hired her a year ago in December. And I just by accident, I've known Krista for a number of years. I didn't know she did this. And I found out she worked with the YMCA and the Fine Arts Center. So she, in one regard, she knew where the money was. But those are a different group of people too, that maybe donate to fine arts and not necessarily different interests, But she helped us kind of establish our plan and plan of attack and help us develop our ask letter and our pledge forms and that type of thing. So I don't think we spent $5,000. And we had consultants that we had talked to that wanted anywhere from a percentage to $100,000. Albuquerque County spent almost $100,000 for their nature center, for their fundraising. But he sent me a copy of all of his materials, and I looked through it, and and then I compare what Kristen has been doing with us, and it's like, it's all the same stuff, not maybe quite as polished, but yeah. And they were still, the staff was still, and the volunteers and the foundation boards and the conservation boards were still having to go out and do the groundwork, the legwork.
I think they had to raise a lot more.
Yeah, theirs was closer to 3.5 or 4 million.
We've had, actually it's
quite a building.
Our CSS meeting, the one was in, it still wasn't complete. It was the first official meeting in that, function in that place.
Yeah.
And then we had one here just a couple months ago.
See,
we were in there.
they had a pretty big footprint of support for that thing as far as different entities. Economic development for that whole region. It's that, so they got a CAT grant towards the end, and that's the thing that right now we're getting, before too long here, we might be able to announce that we're going to be eligible to apply for a CAT grant. I mean, we're getting closer all the time. We got some big grants out there that we're waiting on to announce, and if that comes through, then we'll be in pretty good shape for this fall. So,
Good.
yeah, so that's kind of cool. So yeah, but we've got 140,000 and from, you know, the $50 checks to the $1,000 checks to the $2,500 checks on our private kind of ask. And then we have a number of, we still have some other grant applications out there that are pending. And then Winnebago Industries too, now that they've got the new president and different control, they've indicated that they want to spend like $1 million a year, that's what I've been told. I know they gave the Fine Arts Center $250,000 at the tail end. Yeah. And I know when I found that out, I got a hold of their new director, and so I provided her with information. Well, then she contacted me in December, and we talked, and then she wanted me to send in an application, which I did. And then they just came through with $25,000 with.
Now, are they more sporadic? They aren't on a schedule? Or?
No, they actually, well, they always used to have the same schedule as the Hanson Foundation, like January, March, 4 times a year. I don't know if they're still specifically on that, but she told me in December they had a meeting coming up, and then like it said just last week, she sent an email and said they're going to give 25, and maybe we could look at it more down the road. But and I know Winnebago, she's also told me that they've got a program, I don't remember what they're calling it, but Winnebago employees, if they volunteer, they pick a specific cause to volunteer for, and they put in so many hours, the company will provide a match to that entity. So I've had a number of people call me from Winnebago that are looking at doing something. And the CAT grant we can't apply for until we're down to the last 15%. So the potential there, if we did the whole 15, it'd be 165,000 at the very end. But we'll see if we have to apply for that much or not. I'm not sure.
What exactly is the CAT grant?
Community Attraction and Tourism Grant is through the Iowa Economic. And if you look on their website, monthly they disperse money for things like libraries to pools to nature centers to whatever community projects are applied for. And it might be 100,000, it might be in the multiple millions too. It varies quite a bit each month. So.
I remember what the Fine Arts Center, was it 100,000 they got from CAT?
Yeah, it might have been
more than that.
More than that even. It was right at the tail end, and that's what.
It was 15%, and it was what, 4 or 5 million.
Well, no, the Fine Arts Center was, I think it ended up over 10, 11.
Started at 5.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Winnebago contributed a third, I think, 4 million something. The Hanson Foundation, I should say. Yeah, we have naming rights too. So if you want, somebody that wants to get their name on part of the building, we've got a level for that.
There you go, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can talk later. If you give $250, you get your name on a recognition wall of some sort. We haven't decided exactly what that'll be, but.
Then our fire department did something like that. They've got people that donate to the fire station and all that. They've got right on it.
Library in Thompson, when they redid their facility, they had a tree.
The YMCA is, I think, kind of a tree.
The same thing in the
Fine Arts Center has something.
Arts Center.
Yeah, they all do something like that. We talked about doing pavers or bricks in the building itself, and inside a wall was a lot easier to add names to.
It might be a traffic hazard if it's bricks.
I understand they're looking at it.
Yeah.
You didn't have the right. You might have to get on your hands and knees to read it.
And then what percentage on the salaries are we figuring?
4%. And last year we did 2. The Conservation Board did the budget earlier last year, and then later, I don't know, it was a month or so later, the comp board that met, and you guys had decided, I think you did 4 to whatever it was. And, our board had just at that time decided, because based on the information that was coming out, you guys wanted us to toe the line, and so they did. And otherwise, they would have asked for more last year. But. way too early on the health insurance as far as, I mean, you said 3% was a likely,
We have a contract from last year, so we're good.
oh, so you're locked
Yeah.
into that.
Yep.
Is that the first time we've done that, where you're actually,
Well, we got, we got the new health
Yeah.
workers last year, and when they came in, they offered us
built it in?
2 years, and said it wouldn't be more than 3%, so.
One of the concerns was that, I believe it was Mike that brought it up, was that, the last time we switched, and then they had a huge increase the next year to make up for their lower bid to get.
Well,
the
that's always a
contract.
possibility.
Yeah.
You know? But what's their track record with it? I suppose you probably could look at other counties and see what they've done. That's-
I don't know.
If they had done what you're saying, you know,
They're looking at different ways to keep the cost.
And it wasn't them, it was a different company that had done that to us.
Yeah, no idea. Yeah.
They're a broker. They're out to help us.
And one of the people that was here trying to sell was also from Lake Hills.
Sure.
Bro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her grandmother just died.
So who did Grow work for? Does that have his own, she or?
for
Group benefit partners.
She works for the broker.
Oh,
Yeah,
I see. Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
She actually helps facilitate it. Our contact.
I mean, so far it seems like it's been working pretty smoothly. I haven't
heard any complaints.
noticed anything.
I actually heard some praises.
Yeah, I think it's great, and it's so much easier for us without the partial self-funding, and
Yeah.
it's been wonderful.
We'll move on to the negotiations with the unions and the
Our increase has been taken up with health insurance.
It wasn't an increase.
Whoops. It just has been historically, yeah.
And Flex has expanded again now to where you can buy over-the-counter stuff, or we couldn't, I think, for a while there.
I don't know that honestly.
I think that's what I've been reading. I haven't used it yet, but,
As our group policy is, or the federal policy?
as our policy is, because there was a time there, a number of years back when I first started flexing, where
Yeah.
if you needed to buy, let's say, eye care
Yeah,
products, you could
back then you could do that.
do it. Then the laws changed, I think, or something changed. But now again, and then maybe you have to do it online because our provider through Flex,
You have to do it on that
you have to do it online.
FSA online.
Is that
Yeah.
how it all works?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can't just go in and,
No,
okay,
So much for shop local.
yeah.
by the time I have doctor's appointments and pharmacy and dental and glasses, there's nothing left anyway.
Yeah, you always use it up.
You got any questions on this? Always happy to see when it comes in under the year before.
Then on road type management,
Number 7.
28. I made a big typo. You go down to,
Oh, 136.
well, that's the total, but if you go to salary
You added a 0?
on the
That's all right.
65,000.
Rick would probably,
Yeah.
well, actually,
Yeah, they gave you $65,000 with fuel. That's a little much.
that'd be a little much, yeah.
So that's where that 0 came from. There's another one that we're missing a 0 in roads.
Yes, so the part-time, he moved it to 18,000 instead of 12.
And then I lowered the chemical, and fuel slightly,
Fuels is supposed to be 6,500, I assume?
5,500.
Oh, 5,500?
Chemical above that should be 8,000. And salaries, part-time 18. And then below, under rural supplemental, let's see if I'm looking. The total at 77,922 is the same. Well, maybe you had a different total on the next page there. And FICA, 1378, 1,378, next to the
I
900.
had a change under vehicle. Let's see.
No,
Vehicle
shouldn't be anything for vehicle.
There's a large increase in vehicle expense on hers.
That should be,
It was 5,500, now it's 5,073. is what I heard.
Oh, that's equipment maintenance. That's our old, we're creating a new, that's five, yeah, that one there is five, lowered by $427.
So that's supposed to be equipment maintenance?
It's, well, no, what, the new line item is called vehicle expense.
Oh, okay.
And I put in parentheses, or I put on mine anyway, maintenance, so I keep it straight. That's one of the line items that Chris said we needed to switch from, it used to be like operating expenses.
So is it supposed to be the 5703?
It should be $5,073, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Vehicle expense.
Vehicle expense, and that's, like I said, that's maintenance, not purchase. And then I think
5,073, you said?
5,000, yeah. And then I believe if you go to FICA under rural supplemental, that one should be, the first one there, it should be 1,378, is that what you have? That might not be what you have, but that's what it should be.
1,378, yeah.
And it's 900 right to the left of it there, that's that line item? Yep, okay. And that should be the only, I think that's it. I think there were 4 line items, or 5.
All right. You got any opinions on our recycling program?
Yeah. Ask them where their waste reduction and recycling fees are going.
Yeah, we did.
What'd they say?
We're working on it.
See, back when we started the recycling program, I say we, the Conservation Board, did. Well, back in the 90s, we used to get money from them. We'd get a grant to do household hazards cleanups countywide. We did those like 3 different times. And then one day I get a phone call from the old landfill manager, the old Terry somebody maybe. He was kind of a gruff thing, and he called me and he said, "Do you have any other things that you could use funds for?" That's what he's talking about. He said, other than waste reduction or household hazardous materials. I said, yeah. I said, let me get back to you. Well, then I called the DNR and found out they had this waste reduction recycling fees that are set aside. Each landfill set them aside to use to reduce the amount of garbage that goes in the landfill. So we went back with them with a proposal to start a curbside recycling program. And they paid for 100% of it, everything. They paid for half or a fourth of our naturalist salary, because she would use some of her time for promoting waste reduction recycling throughout the community. And there was a couple other, but we're getting up to $90,000 a year, which included paying for recycling, paying part of her salary and benefits, and then some other miscellaneous expenses in there. And that went on for, so we had, everybody pretty much signed up that wanted to be signed up at that time, the rural, and it was curbside, but it was once a month, like it is now. And that went on for, I don't know if it was half a dozen years, and then one day, I don't remember if it was after they changed hands again or what had happened, but I had a meeting with them up at the landfill, and one of their engineers was there who was from Lake Mills. Can't say her name. She used to live up by Emmons. But anyway, they wanted to just kind of go over what we had done, what we had been doing. And our recycling was generating more per household than the cities were doing. We were doing a good job people were doing a good job of using it. And they said, nah, we're cutting it off, that's it. So that was the end of it. And then it switched over to pay as you go. You guys were paying, the county was paying then, I think.
But at that time, we were getting a tipping fee.
Yeah, you were still getting a tipping fee. $1.50 or whatever it was, or
We were getting, when I started here, we were getting $65,000 a year.
Yeah. Well, we were getting up to 90,000, but that's a different money.
Right.
That's totally different funds.
That's
And-
the part we've been looking at now is what happened to our tipping fee.
I would call I don't know if you talked to the DNR, you can ask the DNR specifically where those funds are supposed to go and how they can be used. And then I remember they would tell us, well, we're developing this out here at the landfill, whatever they were doing. Waste Management does household or hazardous materials collection. You can go online or do whatever you got to do and get them signed up.
They do a special day a year, you can take stuff
Yeah.
out there.
I mean, we'd get tons of stuff that would come in, and it would get shipped off to all over different parts of the country, even over to Europe, some of the stuff that was collected. Those were very well attended. Yeah, it's, I'm trying, well, outright, like now if you go out there, you can drop off appliances, they charge you, of course. And then they were in the middle of, they're collecting the gas. I don't know, now that tomato joint is shut up, I don't know if they just burn it off or.
They burn it off, they provide electricity to like.
Oh, that's right, they're making electricity.
Yeah, and that place is still shut down. They were just utilizing the heat off of them to heat the place.
But I know, I remember messaging maybe you or Mike, I don't know, maybe all of you, a few years ago about asking them about that, where those funds are at. And I think maybe it'd be good just to talk to the DNR that oversees that.
What part of the DNR?
Environmental Protection Division.
Okay.
And I remember it used to be one individual, now he's moved up or he's in a different, I can look it up. When I get back to my office and see.
They never did appoint a permanent director, did they, overall?
No, I've been hearing here just lately that there's a couple of names that are floating around apparently. Yeah, that was the guy that's doing it now as an interim. Troutman is the interim, I think, yeah.
He's retired before, he's just.
Yeah. I've heard representative out of Spirit Lake area is interested in it.
Yep.
And then I also heard.
So I figured it wouldn't be till after session.
I heard Branstad's name being mentioned too. That's actually on the DNR. Marcus, yeah. I guess he's actually been a pretty good commissioner for the Iowa DNR, from what I've been hearing. Not having that kind of a background at all, but has a good interest in it. Yeah, I can make a couple.
Well, we're at a point where we just can't afford this. They keep jacking the price.
What are they charging a year now?
Well, before we had so many households we were paying for, and we redid it, and we got that number of more households, but they kept jacking it up. I don't know what, about 5% or more.
How can you be charging somebody for households that aren't there anymore?
Right.
Well, they're trying to lock you into a number, even though they're not picking
They have
up.
a cost of doing business, and originally we were paying such an exorbitant number because they had to get us all these 96-gallon totes, but they're not getting so many of those anymore, so their cost shouldn't be that high, and so we did a one-year contract last year at the lower number of households, but it's going to go up this year if we re-up. We're not sure we're going to do it.
Is Hancock doing a regional thing where they drop them off?
Yeah, but it's just about as expensive or more. I think their costs out there are
Is
bigger.
it worth do something similar too?
No, they have a center.
That's the county one.
No,
They have a
that's,
center.
okay, that's the
Yeah.
center, yeah, that's right, yeah.
So there must be money. I don't know, have you talked to Worth? Are they making some money?
The one county that has done a fantastic job with it, see, Worth is kind of a minimal operation.
Yeah.
And I toured their facility. It's a Martin shed that
Right.
has some sorting and they ship things off. But they basically just give it to Waste Management and it costs them to get rid of it.
Oh.
And, but the one that does a good job is Winneshiek. Winneshiek won all kinds of green awards for what they do, and they were.
And how are they
actually
doing
making
it?
money at it.
Are they doing a drop off or is it a?
I think it's a drop-off facility. They get a lot of money for cardboard and they get a lot of money for
They
the
partnered.
guy does
they
a really
partnered
good,
with the city of Decorah too, though.
the guy does a really good job of watching the markets and seeing where where to sell the stuff
That's
and
what
when to sell the
the
stuff.
products are.
They must have some.
Yeah, some of that stuff I've heard that, yeah, it's a worldwide market, so it's.
They must have some kind of a compactor there that they
Yeah, they
bale it, ship it that way.
We think China buys a ton of our cardboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they might not be in the market for it.
Yeah, that can fluctuate.
So we're looking at.
There was something that happened.
Every county around here is not happy with the way things are going.
And their service isn't that great. They miss a lot too. I know we get calls still. The garbage service they miss.
I know Cassuth is not happy, Hancock's not happy, we're not happy with trying to get everybody on the same page and coordinate like I say, an agreement to have a common facility of some sort.
Yeah, I know when you go in like into Wisconsin, I'm thinking like the Cross area, you pull into a gas station and there's bins there
Right.
for different, I don't know if it's Waste Management, who it is, BFF or whatever they are. But Waste Management, I think, is the largest one in the world.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
Now Forest City uses Mason City
So
Recycle.
they're a member of that.
So is that still ironclad that they can't come into their service areas? You know, that's what because I was looking at having Danny Peterson bring us a dumpster out at Thorpe Park. 'Cause we were getting so fed up with Waste Management, they kept raising the rates, and their service was crappy. And I got a hold of the right person in Waste Management. Our rate got cut down to like 1/3, and the service didn't get that much better, but the rates went down. But
It's funny how it works, like Buffalo Center.
yeah, you go the other direction.
Yeah, I can't haul my trailer load of whatever there or over to the landfill
No.
here. I have to haul it over by Burt, and then they put it on a truck and haul it over here.
Yeah, if Forest City residents can't go to the landfill up here either,
Is that right?
because they're not in the service area.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, what is it, Thompson? He used to know the. Yeah,
But, you know,
Buffalo.
I've been to one of those, public meetings where they report on what their recycling efforts were and how it affected them. And it's pretty clear it benefits them financially with state credits or something.
Yeah, they had to show a certain amount of reduction
Right.
in overall tonnage. And the tonnage has gone way down from what it used to be. Remember, it used to be 99 counties out of Minnesota, 99, whatever it was all the way up to the west side of the cities, provided 99% of the garbage that went in our landfill. And they were getting all those tipping fees from Minnesota, because their rates were cheaper than Minnesota, and then Minnesota changed their rates. Because I remember back when you were getting a tipping fee,
Yeah.
but it was just based on a tiny.
Lake Mills was getting theirs too. They got a tipping fee also.
Yeah.
And I think about the same amount we were getting, but I don't know if they're still getting it or not.
And I do remember one of the administrative types I talked to in the DNR 15 years ago said if you had to have a landfill, he said that was one of the best run landfills in the state back then. That was when they were putting the new liners in and doing all that stuff. But
Now everybody does.
you have to, I suppose you have to. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we can. Can you pass along the cost to the landowners? I mean, as far as within
through
the,
property taxes.
I mean,
We used to pay for it from the tipping fee.
Yeah.
Now it's just getting passed along.
but what is the annual 50, 60,000, or is it that much yet?
Now it's 30 last year.
It was,
Oh, okay.
yeah, because we negotiated a lower rate last year, but
It was pushing 40 before.
it was like 45.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And it started, I think it started about 30 or lower 30s, and over 5, 6 years, it went up to 45. And it's just ridiculous.
Well, and then you'd have landowners that don't have any use for it because they don't live there. You'd have to, you can't just assess people that have occupied it.
Is it better that if these people want to take their recycling to the landfill and drop it off and pay for it themselves, fine. Why should it be our cost?
But they're not set up there for, they have to be set up
Take it over there.
for recycling
Yeah,
materials?
I've done it.
Okay, I guess I've never.
Because I meant, just bring it over. Yeah.
But they don't charge you
I-
for the recycling?
If I missed a time, they won't charge me. But we're not paying, the county's not paying for our recycling.
Then they'd probably start charging
Then they
people.
probably start charging the people.
And Matt, it's such small potatoes for them. I mean, it's like such a.
Yeah.
Well, if they get credits for it,
Yeah, that's what,
why would they charge people for
because they're a big
recycling?
company and they can't.
Yeah.
I guess if it was me, I'd just,
And I don't know percentage-wise, how many people would use it if they have to drive. I'm sure there's some numbers out there. When we had the curbside program, they had a high percentage were using it, and then the tonnage was way higher than what the cities were averaging. We had to provide them with a quarterly report, I think it was.
Buffalo Center, we have a private contractor hired to pick it all up and he hauls it. Wherever.
But that's the thing with this, their service areas are like ironclad apparently, they can't be busted.
It's made by rules, the rules are made by people who like to have the advantage.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's true. I'll look when I get back and I'll email you the person that maybe be the one to talk to about where those fees are going. So I'm sure it'd be public information as far as the report.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a little information on that. All right, thanks, Robert.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Robert.
You bet.
Number 29.
Number 29?
Yeah, page 61.
I don't know.
Sure, what else?
Kelsey and I have been talking to that guy from Waste Management for, well, it started with Adam, and what has that been, a year ago?
Well, if you ignore it long enough, it'll go away, right? They wear you out. It's just kind of like Bill doing an MCO.
I don't really wear out. I'm
I
kind of ornery.
think talking to the DNR and finding out, are they benefiting from us and should they be paying some? Because where did all this money go that they were giving out before?
Mhm.
Well, we know where it went.
Well, part of it, the tipping fees, if the fee structure up in Minnesota changed, that was coming down here. I think the loads are less now too. There should have been some. If we had a source of income to pay for it, I wouldn't feel so bad about it. We don't.
Yeah. To me, it's just something that everybody ought to take care of on their own.
What's a big
You live in
population
town.
paying for small amount of usage. That's the problem.
Another thing for the public forum, what are our priorities?
Yeah, yeah.
When are we gonna do this forum that we keep talking about?
Well, we're developing our questions now.
Well, speaking of questions, what was it the question yesterday we wanted to ask the auditors?
Oh, yeah, this ACH withdrawal thing that the revolving loan fund would like to do, why isn't that possible?
Say this again?
Automatic withdrawals from businesses that have revolving loan fund loans, why can't we do an ACH withdrawal monthly?
Because the treasurer doesn't want to.
And why is that?
I would ask the treasurer.
I will. Because this is an era that people count on things like that. USDA would like to see it.
Yeah, I would ask the treasurer. If you want to ask Elizabeth to make sure it's legal, that would be,
But the USDA guy said, well, everybody else is doing
So it must be legal then.
it.
yeah.
All right,
All right.
answers that.
Do you wanna, should we call Matt Duvay and put him on speakerphone and see if we can do zoning?
Sure. There was a number here. You got his number in your phone?
I do. Okay, this zoning map today, just probably right here, and that, the number listed here.
It transfers.
Does it?
Yeah, I think so.
So for an outside, how do I go outside?
9.
And 5, 8.
else, Matt?
Hi, Matt. This is the supervisors, Bill and Terry and Carla. We're looking at your budget. You got any input on this?
Not really. I think I just copied it from last year. Nothing new.
What numbers?
I hope.
What number was it, Carla?
I'm looking.
We're still trying to find your budget.
It's small enough to go past it.
Yeah, don't forget about me.
Yeah. We're cutting a lot of things, but that's probably not one of them.
53.
53.
Oh, I was getting close.
All right, you're right before miscellaneous.
At least he's not by miscellaneous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have one called it.
All right, so, yeah, it's the same as last year, other than, the general office supplies went up a little.
Did I add more into that for some reason?
Yeah, I don't know, it was 50 last year, it's 500 this year, but
Unless it was a typo.
Oh, could have been a typo. Good guess.
are you okay with the 50 then, in the office supplies?
Yeah, I don't think I need a whole lot.
Okay.
I could use an office, but that's a little more than $50. That's okay. I like to share it with the auditors.
Well, I'm wondering, does well, I don't know. There are storage containers available in town, if you're interested.
No, as much as I'm not there, it's completely fine.
All right.
And Eric got me set up so wherever I am, I can log in and get to go. So.
It's actually kind of the premium office there in the corner.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I understand.
Yeah. Okay. Now Carla, is the number for workman's comp right? Or is it, because last year it was actuals at 374, so it should be higher.
I will check with Chris, but we can.
Because that's just per employee that we have to have workman's comp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll figure that part of it out.
Okay.
So that should be, unless you have anything, that should be all we need from you.
Good deal. No, I think that's about it. Still kind of learning, so.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, but.
Did we finish VA yesterday?
We talked.
21.
We talked about it. Finished and started to finish about a board.
What you talking about?
VA number 21. Page 46.
Is the retrospect or data spec or whatever it is that they do in the
Yes.
VA office, is that in your budget or is that separate
I do
in
not
there?
have it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
In their budget. As far as
Okay. I will still have to add it then to the VA budget. And then Eric had a couple of changes that he needed to make to his budget. If I can find it. How much due? It'd be a big deal. Okay. So he's Department 52. And So IT services is going from 42,500 to 112,500.
What happened is I totally missed the implementation fees related to the Financials 10 software on what I had before. We just got the proposed contract for that to review. So I was looking through there and I was like, well, and it's a lot of work. It's probably, it's not.
They spend like a month here, a couple different times to do the.
Yeah. That's money that's going to, I'd say a good portion of it is going to people that actually come here to our building to help with the transition, train staff, make sure that we get up and going on the new system, and make sure that our data that gets converted over from the old software to the new software is accurate and as error-free as possible. I assume we will be bringing that contract to the board.
Eventually, as
Yeah.
soon as Kelsey will say.
Yeah. So this would be the budget for the project, but we will come to the board for approval to execute the project at some point.
So your new total amount?
I don't know
So
what the,
let's see. So the next number under that, instead of the 104,896, it'll be 134.
Oh, that's higher too.
Yeah.
I moved and then I decreased the data processing software
So it's
64,600.
134,900. Right underneath the one you just did. And then down the last line item that has numbers in it, that data processing, that moved to 1,000.
Oh, is that one?
So as I was thinking about it, it's more of a subscription-based software than the purchase, so that's why I moved it to the software maintenance agreements. That's where the other stuff, that's where it should have been. And then yeah, so then the implementation fees were right about $70,000. So that should be what the IT services went up roughly. And I did kind of round off one other number in there that would have been maybe about $1,000 difference on one other software item while I was looking at it really close. So I'm glad I found that now rather than later. That kind of turned my budget the whole the other way. I thought it was going to go down and now it's not.
Now, implementation's a one-time.
Yes, it's a one-time fee. And it's all, this is a portion of the contract, they have it all lined out as far as there's allocating this amount of time for this. And now this, if I recall, we'll have to confirm it with them, but when we did the last conversion a couple of years ago, they said this is mainly an estimate and they shoot high. And so it's possible we could come in less than that.
More of a time and material thing.
Yeah, I mean, if, like I said, they're coming on site. If we've got it after they've been here for 3 weeks rather than 4, and everybody here is like, if you're here for another week, we don't know what in the world you're going to do, then they won't come. Now, that's unlikely to happen, but they don't want to charge, they're not going to charge us for time that they don't give to us, has been my understanding. So I will make sure that this one still reads that way, but that's how it was last time.
So, for instance, in year 2, no different terminology, like instead of implementation, it's maintenance?
No, the agreement lays out one-time fees, $69,710, and then a subscription fee of $36,462. And it's clearly stated, the subscription fee is an annual fee for 5 years, is what the contract that we'll bring to you guys says.
What was that called again?
Encode 10 Financial.
It used to be Tyler.
Well, Tyler Technologies is the company that makes it. And the prior software that it is replacing was called Eden, E-D-E-N, which was also made by Tyler. We're just looking at something that's, let's say, 10 years newer as far as the software development.
It's gonna solve all our problems.
It should.
It'll solve some and create others.
Mhm.
Mousetrap.
It's, from looking at the demos, I would say it's possible that it could help bring more visibility into some of the different, budgets and line items and things like that, or possibly for department heads, depending on how we want to use it. Allow them, if they want, to have, more visibility, or at least more visual ability to kind of see some things. It does some charting and graphing in ways that the other software did not.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to?
I just have that for you. You can take a look at it and I'll get questions.
That's what you gave me yesterday.
Yep.
So I have to get to a doctor's appointment.
Okay. I gotta get to Rotary, so we're all good. I'm gonna do as much as I can to get a budget in and get it all ready, and I'm not guaranteeing, but I'm hoping.
So we're still meeting at 9 o'clock on Friday to talk budgets and about VA appointments.
Yes.
Okay.
Like I said, it depends on how much I get done, because if we'll have too much to talk about with VA or with the budgets, but I'm hoping to get as much done as I can. But for sure, we need to appoint somebody to the VA board.
I think Barney would be good on it.